by me now. Wait a moment while I clean my hands, yeah. Baby, where are you going? Why don't you stay by me now? Wait a moment while I clean my hands, yeah. Baby, where are you going? Why don't you stand by me now? Wait a moment while I clean my hands up. I've been moving all around the world, looking for something that's behind your door. You were lying on your bedroom floor. I was on my way, I was on my way. I'm coming home. 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 I'm coming home.
Well, good morning. Good morning, beautiful people. How are you? And no, I'm not looking in the mirror. So, for those of you who are like, okay, he's at it again. No, welcome to today's installment of Bathrobe Moments. And I am your host, Loren Michaels Harris. And I can't think of anywhere in the world that I'd rather be than right here in this chair with you. So, listen, you all know it's true. I say it all the time. And there's the bell of purpose to back up my theory, which is we all have an innate desire to be a part of something, or we should at least have an innate desire to be a part of something greater than ourselves. And guess what? It's really easy. It's so easy. It doesn't cost. You won't bleed. I promise. Hit the share button, invite a friend, even start a watch party. Because when you have the good news right there with you, the first thing you should do is share it with someone else. Trust me, they're out there looking, and we are here to help people find it, right? Welcome to the show, everybody. We are live streaming today, as always, across the following platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Roku, Android, Amazon Fire Stick, Apple TV, and of course, E360 TV. And we just added yesterday iOS. You can find us on your iPad, and also LinkedIn. So I want to say hats off, or at least tip it, to my sponsors for this month, Nikki's of Naperville, and also the Emperor's Medicine, opening a new office in Oswego in just a couple weeks. And yeah, that's a real town for those of you who are not in the Illinois area. I am so excited about a lot of things. You know, yesterday was my first day back. Gone for 10 days, went down to the Ozarks, Lake of the Ozarks, stayed at Jimmy Buffett's place, not his personal home, I wish. Now, went down there to his beautiful resort. And you know, I cut my stay short. All my Air Force buddies were there until yesterday. I came back about 4 days early because we'd run out of safe things to do. The fishing was finished, the jet skiing was finished, and now the only thing left was the pool. Really, and there were so many people in there, not a mask to be seen. And so I just a personal decision. So I came back because I had a lot of things to do around the house. You know, staining the deck, digging out in my garden and flowers and stuff like that. So I'm glad I did. And I got those of you who were here yesterday know that I was like doing this during the show because I got up at 5 o'clock because the one thing on my checklist my bucket list for vacation, if you will, was to get this area cleaned up, this desk of mine. And boy, I held up my trash bucket yesterday to show you. It was a mess. I don't know how it got so out of hand, right? Listen, for those of you who are new, been living under a rock, or aliens just returned you, you might wonder what that bell ringing is all about. This is the bell of purpose. It's new to season 4. And what it means is when our guest says something or does something or inspires you in any way, you're going to hear that bell ring. It could even be one of you all out there throwing a comment up. What it means is you're putting down something that we're picking up. If you like it, we love it. And when you hear that bell, it means I love what you're doing and I'm going to get behind it and support it. So bell of purpose means you're really saying something. And today, our guest is one who has said a lot of something. A matter of fact, multiple Emmy Award winning recipient, Rob Johnson. If you're anywhere from the Chicago area, you're going to recognize the name. He spent over 21 years on the airwaves here in Chicago. And I know it's true because my good friend Michael Toy, who is an actor out in San Francisco, he grew up here. As soon as he saw the promo, he started calling me. Oh, you got to introduce me to him. I grew up with him. Oh my God. And he's, if you guys know, Michael is the one who sends me all of the up and coming artists, actors, actresses, singers, dancers, poets, directors, producers, all of that stuff for our Wednesday night show, Bathrobe Moments After Dark. So for him to get excited over person, I was like, oh, well, we've really switched roles now. Thank you, Rob Johnson. So anyway, that's who's here today. There's so much to say. Rob, was behind the chair, anchoring in the news world for all those years, but now he's doing things. He has Rob Johnson Communications, assisting clients with a wide range of communications issues, including, and this is just a few, because we only have an hour, so I can't list all the things. But I'll let him get to the ones I missed. Image building. Hmm. Anyway, image building, cultural issues, political strategy for an international firm purchasing a plan overseas. Oh, this is a lot deeper than I thought. I should pre-read this. Message strategy. Ooh, now you're getting in my area. Watch it, Rob. Get off my toes. Get off my bunions. Get off my bunions, Rob. Um, Media training, executive coach. Oh, there he goes again. Can anybody check this guy out? Good Lord. Anyway, I'm gonna let him tell you about it because I'm starting to get my inferiority complex is creeping in. You know what? I heard you never know how these celebrities, especially Emmy Award winners, are going to show up. But I heard that his people got here early this morning and rolled a red carpet out in my house. I forgot to go out there and look, but all the neighbors are out there. Is that him?
Hey,
Oh,
we're here.
well,
We're here.
fresh from wardrobe and makeup, I see.
Yes, indeed.
Hi,
Well,
Rob.
you told me it was bathrobe moments, so I'm like, hey, I can roll right out of bed, throw a hat on, and I'm good. That was awesome.
You can, and as long as you don't do like the guy in season 2, I had a gentleman who thought it was bathroom moments, and he was literally sitting
Oh
in the
no.
bathroom when we went live. It was on Facebook back then.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah, yeah. He wasn't using it, but he was sitting on it, and I
because
was
you never
like,
know
"Is that
somebody
a
might be
towel rack? Are
Did
you,
you
you know?"
did you see that it was early on during COVID when there was some Zoom meeting and somebody's on the toilet in the Zoom meeting and everybody's like, we can see you and hear you. It was one of those viral moments that was pretty
No,
spectacular
but that's a good one.
for sure.
Well, I gotta be honest. There was one time my phone went live in my pocket. Have you ever had that one happen?
Oh yeah. Oh well, no, yes. That's not good. That's not good.
You
And you're like, I
talk
thought it
about
was on vibrate.
scary.
That's supposed to be on vibrate, right?
That's right. That's right. So, Rob, you are where are you in the Illinois area still?
Yeah, I live in Hinsdale in the Western Burbs, not far from you.
Oh, not far at all.
Yeah,
Hinsdale.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I attended a wedding there last year. Sure did at the Hinsdale Seventh-day Adventist Church.
yeah. I know where it is. I know where it
Uh-huh,
is.
uh-huh. A lot of, the houses there, historic. They look like historic houses. It was really pretty.
Yeah, there's some houses that are historic here that are, I mean, not only historic the way we would define it, but in the literal sense as well. So yeah, there's some pretty cool places. Mine is
Right,
not one
right.
of those,
Well, it doesn't
which is
need to be. It's historic. It's just for a different reason. And six or seven of those reasons are right behind you.
right.
Can you move? You know, people don't get to see these up close and personal. But can you move and let people see your image
I
back
got
there?
there. Yeah, there's five of them there. There's two others around as well. It's funny. We've had a few visitors in the house lately, and they walk in the office and they're like, "Whoa!" So I mean, it's not like they don't walk in the front door and see them, and it's not like, we run people through our office all the time, but it's definitely a conversation starter.
Now, Rob, yeah, yeah. Now, I know I know that you are quite humble and all, but I heard a rumor that you were someone said they saw you in the Jewel with all of those Emmys in your shopping cart.
Yeah, it was really weird. And that it goes toward, 15 items or less, they count those. So I was
Yeah.
really upset because all of a sudden they wouldn't let me go through the 15 items or less line. And I had like 20 items when in fact I only had, 13.
So no, I want to get serious about this because I want to know how you did it. And now tell everybody how you got started, um, and lead up to what we see behind us. Because how do we never get the chance to find out how this actually happens in the process. So you started. What was your major in college? Communications.
Yeah, my major is communications. I went to DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana. DePaul with a W, not DePaul in Lincoln Park.
Oh,
And I was going to my first econ class. My dad was in business. He's had a distinguished business career. He was a lawyer, international businessman, got a Series 7 accounting degree, the whole deal. And I took my first econ class, and I was like, what else is out there? And so I started DJing on the graveyard shift at the radio station at DePaul.
me too.
Which led to morning DJing, which led to basketball and football play-by-play, which led to newsroom work. Actually, I'll tell you this, the first story I ever covered in the news department at DePaul, and I'm not proud of this, I was proud of the way I covered it. One of the fraternities, this is back in the 80s, of course, I'm dating myself, they had a ghetto party. And they had some of the fraternity brothers dress in blackface, which even back then, you knew not a good idea.
Right.
And so I had to cover this because I was in the news department, and I had to go to the fraternity house with my little tape recorder and go interview the president. And I knew the guy, which is, weird to have to do that. Anyway, Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton come to town, and they protest. And it was the first news story I ever did. And I ended up being a stringer for the AP for that week or so that the story was happening. And we ended up winning a Society of Professional Journalism Award for it. And I did a documentary on it. And it was my first story ever. So, of course, I thought, well, you win awards every time you do a story, right? Which is not the case. But it really whetted my appetite because between that story, and then at the same time, George H.W. Bush taps Dan Quayle as his vice presidential running mate, and Dan Quayle was a DePaul 1969 graduate. So the media all came to town for that. And those are two of the first handful of stories I ever covered. And all of a sudden you're at the center of this universe. And I really enjoyed the adrenaline. And it also was a great lesson. Like I said, you're friends with somebody, but you have to walk in their, fraternity house or this or that, and you have to ask them tough questions. So I learned early on about sort of separating, friendships. And, if you got a job to do, you got a job to do. It was a great lesson to learn early on.
Right.
And so that's really how I got started. So fast forward to a couple of internships. My parents live in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I'd worked at a couple of them there. And then my second semester of my junior year, I interned at CNN in Washington, D.C., which was a terrific experience. And this is back when they really had news like every hour. Now they have different shows and this and that.
Right.
But news deadlines every hour. They had people smoking and drinking tons of coffee and just, just the nervous energy. But the great highlight for me was getting to run teleprompter and camera. This is back in the 80s when it was like chicken wire and duct tape holding up the studios, and they let interns run camera and teleprompter. They would never allow that now. Of course, most of it's automated now. But I got to run that for Bernard Shaw, who is one of my heroes in the business. And for the younger people that are watching, they're like, who? Look him up. The guy was a legend. He was in the hotel room in '91 when the Gulf War started. He was, reporting live when they were fighting. The United States is firing Scud missiles in Iraq. I mean, this guy is an absolute legend. And I just getting to be around him and to pick his brain a little bit, and there's not a lot of dialogue going on because he's the main guy and he's pulled in 40 different directions. But when I did the CNN in Washington thing, and I've always had a keen interest in politics, that was when I realized, man, this is what I want to do. I really like this. And from then I remember going back to DePauw, and everybody would have job interviews their senior year, and a lot of people would go, have them, with Eli Lilly or Ralston Purina or these places. And these people were making a good salary and they got a company car, doing like sales jobs right out of school. And there was nothing for me. It was like I had to go find my way. And so I moved back home for a couple of months, send out the 3/4-inch resume tapes. I don't know, for people that know the TV business a little bit, these things weigh about 5 pounds. They're the old ones. Of course, they don't even use tape anymore. Everything, chip and everything else. But I had to send these out, and I started my career in Alexandria, Louisiana, being the newsreader on the morning show. So it's sort of like set up like the Today Show a little bit, in a really small market. And I had no anchor experience. And I went for an interview. My resume tape that I had created at CNN wasn't very good. But this is a great lesson for people who are trying to get a job. And I know right now is not the great time to be talking about face-to-face because, COVID's happening. But the way I always got my jobs was meeting somebody face-to-face. So if I sent out a resume tape or if I corresponded with them by mail or email, it did okay. But man, if I got in a room with somebody, to make my case, and that's how I got my first job. The lady that hired me, her name was Anne LaRue. She said, your resume tape's not very good, but there's something about you. I'm going to take a chance on you. And so I started doing reading the news on the morning show. So I was like the third wheel on the morning show. And there was a guy, James Lewis, who's since retired, who had worked at QVC. And so he wasn't really a news guy. He was sort of a host. I remember that. Sort of like he could sit there and talk about products on QVC for hours with no script. He's one of those guys. So he's a real polished performer. And I got through my first news cut in. It was like 2-3 minutes, whatever it was. I was nervous as could be. I don't think I was sweating like Albert Brooks in broadcast news, but I might have been. I don't know. But I got through it. And I was so relieved. And right when we went to commercial break, James walks right behind me without breaking stride. And he said, have you ever considered a career in real estate? And I was like, I thought I did a great job. And so the point was I was a little rough around the edges, but that's why I was working in market 70 at the time.
Okay. Right.
But hard work paid off. And I ended up doing, getting to be the noon anchor, getting to cover politics, reporting, covering the Louisiana legislature, which was, the first gubernatorial contest I ever covered in Louisiana. It was David Duke, the former Grand Dragon of the KKK, Edwin Edwards, who served time in federal prison for corruption. And they couldn't have been more polar opposites. And to get to cover these characters, I mean, you can't, you can't get that kind of experience. So
this is true.
I moved on to a station in Lafayette, Louisiana. Then I was able to be the main anchor at the ABC station in Little Rock, where my mom and dad lived. I wasn't from there. We'd lived all over. But I got to do that. And then I moved to Houston, Texas for 3 years. And then in '98 came to Chicago and started ABC, anchoring weekends and reporting, which is where some of these were earned. And then 13 years at CBS in 2006, got to be the main anchor there for 13 years. And so So how does this stuff behind me happen? You know, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of one of them was best anchor back in '05 when I was working at ABC, and most of them are collaborative. Most of them are stories that you do with other people. You know, best story, best breaking news, whatever the case may be, and it requires the great work of a lot of other people. So I mean,
Right.
I have them behind me, and other people that have earned them have them on their desks, I'm sure as well, because most, you know, this, you know, TV is a collaborative business, and people think, oh gosh, you know, lights, camera, action. Look, he's got the makeup on and the tie and this and that, and it's all about him. It's really not about you. If you're good in this business, you understand what a team effort it is to make things, you know, successful. So that's how it happened. And you know, I've been in the business a long time in Chicago, and I have 7 of them. So you might say, well, I only have 7 in 20 years.
No, that's like, no.
That I thought was good that didn't win or didn't get nominated. Some of the best work I've ever done didn't even get nominated. And then other things that I thought were pretty good, they were like, there you go. So
yes, if you think it's coming in from the left, it'll hit you from the right. If you think it's
exactly.
coming in high, it'll come in low.
Yeah.
So you just do what you need to do and leave the rest to legacy, if you will, pretty much, right? So let's go back a little bit, because I wanted to explain to people when you were talking about radio. I started in radio, of course, because you know I do have that communications background, and it's funny because in the '80s I graduated in 1980, and that was the big. Everybody was going into communications, and most of them ended up working for like MCI and places like that,
Yeah, right.
or
That's
we were
why-
waiting tables at Red Lobster, and some still are. So it's like I got into the radio thing too. So talk about so people, I want to understand this progression of how it's not easy, people. Even in radio, especially TV, it's even harder when you move through the markets. So I know in radio, you know, they'll be listening in and monitoring you while you're in. My first one was Town and Country Radio out in Arizona, KTLC. Yes, I was a big Lori Morgan fan and didn't even know it. Right. So but then you work your way all the way to, for me anyway, it was Los Angeles with the Beat, KKBT, and it was a hard road to get there, you know, because you want to get out of those little podunk places, but you can't go anywhere until someone says, hey, come here. So I'm thinking television must have a little bit more because people can see you. See, in radio, all you have to do is sound good, you know, but in television, you have to have that thing. So talk about that. What were the pressures like? You know, as far as the competition and moving about, and how did people treat you differently once you got that first Emmy under your belt? And 3-part question here, I'm known for them. Does getting an Emmy make your pay grade go up?
No.
See, people would automatically think that. I did.
No way. It's, you know, they sign you to contracts and there's they don't put incentives in there at all. You know, I remember earlier in my career, like trying to get ratings incentives. Hey, if I move the needle, I should get bonuses. They're like, no, they want cost certainty, and never more so than now, given where the business is now, given where we are right now with, you know, revenues hurting because of COVID and that sort of thing. So no, Emmys do not equate to more money. It equates to, hey, I did, you know, a lot of people, you know, in the business have won them. So, I mean, it's obviously a great honor to have won them, but, you know, I'm not the only one that's done it, you know, so other people have done it too. So it's a little feather in your cap at the very least, you know, and, but working your way up, you know, it's, you know, you start, as I mentioned, you know, some of my friends who, you know, had sales jobs and had company cars and had, you know, bonuses and things of that nature. And I started off making half of what they made in a little podunk town, and they don't pay you and they work you so hard. The good thing for me was I was so determined to get better that I wasn't making any money. So I didn't have any money to spend. So I couldn't, you know, there would be weekends I could barely afford to go out on the weekend. And then the boss would come and say, hey, you want to try to do weekend sports? And I love sports. I'm like, yeah, I'll try that. Hey, you want to do learn how to do weather? Yeah, I'll do weather. You know, not the first time, but probably the first week I ever did weather, I was doing it on the morning show. And I mean, I didn't know anything about meteorology. I was just
don't they say, and here's meteorologist Rob Johnson.
But it's great because it helps you with ad-libbing in a way that other kind of ad-libbing doesn't help you because you don't have a net. When you see those meteorologists or weather forecasters up on screen, they are ad-libbing every bit of it. So I did probably the first week, I did a weathercast. The sales guy for my first station called me in and he said, "Hey, Rob, I want to share something with you." And I thought he was going to give me, hey, way to go. Good job. And he was like, "You said 42 times in a 3-minute weathercast."
He was obviously a Toastmaster.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But the point was, that's awful, and that's how you get better, even though you might not like to hear it. But so I was able to learn so many skills in my first job because I was just a sponge and because I didn't really know how to do it before. You don't really know how to do it until you do it. There's some schools now, some of the top journalism schools, you're going to learn how to do a lot of things before you do it. And then in a place where I went at the time, which now has a media center, they didn't have one when I was there. I had to learn how to do it on my own. And it was, just by wits and sheer determination that I did it. But that's how I learned to report. I learned to anchor. I learned to do weather. I learned to do sports. Mm-hmm. And you have to do everything in those small markets. Well, and so there's a lot of ramen noodles and Kraft macaroni and cheese for dinner too.
Oh, I'm sure. Let me ask you, because I remember and I loved it. That was the thing I loved the most because I did AM and news radio and all that. And I love, the UPI machine and going over and ripping off the stories and actually writing the copy. In television, in the early days, I bet you did some of that, but later on in your career, did people write the stories and hand them to you? And then you do your own little tweaking, or how did that work?
And in terms of all the content?
Of the stories, yeah. Do they come to you ready-made, or do you get to, add your own little flavor?
Are you talking about early in the business or like?
Well, comparatively, early, I bet you got to do your own.
Yeah.
But then later, where when now you got an Emmy or 2 or 3 or 6.
Well, I'll tell you this. I got in Chicago. I'll give you that perspective because in a lot of markets you can do anything and everything. And in Chicago, if you're an anchor, you cannot write all of your own material unless you participated in the story. So for an example, on a regular day, I would be able to go into other people's stories. And this is because of union rules. They're trying to, make sure that the writers are writing and the producers are producing, things of that nature.
Right.
So I can go in and change it. I can make it, factually correct. I can make it more the way I would talk, and do a little, I call it minor surgery. Right. And so you're allowed to do that. If you are participating in the story, for instance, when I would be covering the Cubs or the Blackhawks winning championships and we'd be in the field, or I was covering the Republican National Convention in 2016 in Cleveland, and we're on site and we're anchoring the shows in the field, and they would come to me, frequently during the show, I could write every bit of that. So for me, that was fun. That content creation was lots of fun.
Yeah.
Because even if I always think that if you're a good anchor, that you're still a reporter at heart, and for anchors now, in my last job, they're, because of budgetary issues and other things, we just didn't do a lot of field work. We didn't do a lot of things where you could get out and create that sort of content. But I love being able to interview people. I love being where the action is. I always call it like having a front row seat to history. When President Obama is running for president back in 2008, we got to cover the caucuses in Iowa, New Hampshire, Texas, Pennsylvania primaries, on the way to Denver for the convention. At that point, Flannery kind of picked it up. Mike Flannery, who used to work at CBS, now at Fox. And so we got a front row seat to history. And there's no better place to be than there. And so as an anchor, and not everybody thinks that way either. I'm not speaking for all anchors because some of them like to sitting in the studio and the lights and the makeup and this and that. I mean, that's fine. And it looks glamorous and that sort of thing. But I really love I love being where the story was. And I think really good anchors still consider themselves reporters.
That was one of my questions. The difference between, reporter, journalist, that sort of thing. Because you feel so bad. I have a friend who, she interviewed me down in Michigan. I had to go there. Jade Melody is her name. I see her. She's moved like 6 times since
Yeah.
last year, and yet last time I caught something on her page, she was out in the middle of a rainstorm. Her poor hair was all stuck to the side of her face and a little
Yeah.
eyelashes she could barely see. And that's part of it. When you get woken up in the middle of the night and you got to go, it's like being an EMT, in a lot of ways. But when we return, we're going to take a short break for the cause. We're going to ask Rob some of the questions. We're about to cut to the chase.
All right.
Cut to the chase. We're going to ask some questions. And the first one when we come back is, because I want to know, just like Whitney used to say, I want to know, how many times have you slept with one of those Emmys? We'll be right back. Well, okay, and we're back. Welcome back to today's installment of Bathrobe Moments. I'm your host, Loren Michaels Harris, and we're here today with I think it's 6 or is it 7?
7 doesn't matter though. 7.
7-time Emmy Award-winning news anchor Rob Johnson, and we were just talking about all of the different things that it takes. And some of you may have seen just now there was a promo for E360 TV, and today's world makes it easy for people like us to do something similar, just getting your message out there. So if you're interested, hit me up, and I'll tell you what you can do to get your message in front of the world. So Rob, tell the truth. I would have. I'm just saying, at least once I would have taken an Emmy to bed with me, just because you always see in those old movies, like when I don't know, let's go all the way back to like what was her name, Scarlett O'Hara, win an Oscar and they wake up and you're on the cover of Look magazine, sleeping with your, of course it was set up. But did you ever? Tell us about 2 things. When you found out you were nominated. And then that scary part about, when they're gonna choose, and do you want to get excited but not too excited? And then because if you don't win, people, oh, sorry about the Emmy, Rob. Or what was it like once you won it? Did people change and start treating Rob differently now?
I don't think they treated you differently, but the first one I won was for this story called Hope in Honduras, and it was about going on a mission trip to Honduras and being in a third world country. And
a mission trip like the Mormon thing?
It was a medical mission
trip
okay. With Peace Lutheran Church in Lombard, and they had a bunch of people that went down there, and it was a medical mission. So it was a lot of medical professionals helping these the people that wouldn't get this sort of medical care with the medical care. And you see people down there running on dirt roads with no shoes on, and I mean, just they're living in absolute squalor. And it was a really life-changing moment for me. And it was I loved being able to do the story. And so I did like a 2-part series. I think it was a 2-part series at WLS when I got back. And it was very gratifying. And I think it really drove the point home. To me, it was like that good kind of journalism you don't get a chance to do a lot of anymore.
Yeah.
And so that was it. So you get nominated. You're like, I think this is pretty good. So you get nominated. You're like, hey, I got nominated. And then you get to the ceremony and you're sitting there and you're like, I really want to win. It's always funny when people say, it's just an honor to be nominated.
Yeah.
Come on.
I know it when they said it. I heard it.
You got to say it. But I would, there are probably a handful of people that get nominated that are just happy to get nominated. But if somebody says, I don't really, I don't really care. I just want to get nominated. I don't care if I win. I don't think they're telling the truth because that's not the way I felt. And when I won it, I felt such a huge, just sigh of, just had this huge relief, this exhale. And it was I was so proud of the people that I had worked with to put that story together. And I was so proud to be able to tell that story and to be acknowledged for it. It was just a real kick. And
I bet.
And so you'd bring home the Emmy, but then, if you take it to bed with you, you might break it. So no, you can't sleep with it because what if you roll over on it and you wake up
as broke the globe off?
It's broken. That would be such a rookie mistake, right?
It really would be. It really would be.
So no, I never. The truth is, I never slept with it. Probably because I was worried I was going to break it.
Did you ever get up when you had that first one? Because I would have. Get up in wherever it was in its place of prominence. Just go and stare and go like, wow, how did I get here? Because the reason I love this question is because, and this is for everybody out there, your legacy piece doesn't have to come wrapped up in the likes of an Emmy. But I think all of us, as I mentioned at the top of the hour, have an innate desire to be a part of something greater than ourselves. And that's what legacy is all about. Now, people are able to create legacy in all types of ways nowadays, leaving something behind one day that continues to speak your message. So how does that feel to you, though? Do you feel like, okay, when you look at those 7 Emmys, you feel like, well, look at those legacy pieces. Look at something that can stay behind after I'm gone. And how does it make you feel? And how do you use that as a springboard to say, but I'm still not finished?
Well, listen, I think winning an Emmy, winning an award, winning something that's as identifiable as an Emmy, there's other awards you can win. You can win AP awards and Society of Professional Journalism and all these other awards, but everybody knows what an Emmy is, right? But that doesn't define the work that I did. And probably a lot of people that have won them feel that way too. And this isn't phony baloney, but the way that the legacy, since I'm not in TV anymore, the legacy I left behind, I hope was the work. I hope it was I was on the news, 3 times a night, and I was trustworthy and I was credible and I was honest. And during breaking news situations, I wasn't breathless. I tried to be cool-headed. I hope that that's the legacy. People that are watching this who remember me on TV, I hope they say, that's how I remember Rob. I don't think I'm going to be, on my epitaph, it's not going to say, Emmy Award winner. I just don't think, I don't think that's really how it defines me. Now, do I look at them and go, oh, that's pretty cool? And honestly, I'm in this office every day and I don't sit there and go, wow. But when I told you we had visitors come through, and we give them a tour of the house or whatever, and they'd see it, and everybody spent a lot of time in the office going, wow. And then you realize that to everybody else who doesn't, see that, that's really cool. And it was really cool to have it happen. And each time was different, but they're always, special, but that doesn't really define me.
Right.
The work define me. The big stories that I've been talking about, I feel like those define me. The way I handle myself in pressure situations, the fact that I come into people's homes every night, that's trust, that's very humbling if you think about it in a certain way, because people are allowing you into their homes. They can click around and look at anybody.
It'd go anywhere. And
so that to me, that's the legacy. It's not the hardware behind me.
Nicely said. Nicely said. If you've joined us since the top of the hour or after our break, and you're wondering who we're here with, yes, the name is Rob Johnson, 7-time Emmy Award-winning news anchor. And we're going to switch gears here, Rob, to take this legacy piece into the next phase of your life. And I do want to ask this question, though. The day after you stepped away from the anchor desk, how did it feel? Did it take some getting used to? How was it becoming acclimated to not being on the air? Because that's a big thing. And now it's not there. How long did it take you to, find your new niche as far as not being in front of the world every day?
Well, I think it's, I think you have to exhale when something like that happens, when you realize that's not going to be part of your life anymore. And so I would say it happened in March of 19. And I think probably I spent a couple of weeks kind of like, oh, okay, that's happening. But I had this extra time that I never ever had, and I was able to spend more time with my wife and son. And back when I worked nights and my son's going to school, I'd see him for an hour a day, and then I'd see him on the weekends. And all of a sudden, I'm able to see him a little bit more. So I enjoyed that. And then then it was spring break, and we went on a vacation, and we ended up going to Aruba. And of course, that's a great way to exhale. It's terrific. And then when I got back from that, so I'd say 3 weeks in, it was like, okay, what am I going to do? What path do I want to pursue? And started thinking about that and I'd already thought about it, actually. I mean, my last few months in television, I thought, maybe I want to do something else. This has been a nice long run. The business, the one I was talking about going on the big stories and doing the great work and feeling satisfaction from doing it, didn't really exist anymore, primarily for budgetary reasons.
Right.
Where they just you can't cover the story the way you used to, and certainly I have a ton of respect for all the journalists that are having to cover this particular story, COVID, from their homes and doing that sort of thing. So they're having to. So I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody, but the business had changed, and so I've been thinking about consulting, and I thought, maybe I'd like to take all my communications experience and translate it into something else, and so I started going along that path. And the way I tell people, when I tell people why I did it, I get an aha moment when I say, if you're company X and you're in marketing or communications or this or that, or you spend all your day trying to put out fires, you're trying to anticipate what might happen, you're trying to avoid stepping in it. And I said, guess who started all the fires all those years?
Right.
People like me. We were the fire starters. It's not like we started the fire, but that was our way. We pushed back. We probed. We asked tough questions. You spin how great a company you are or organization, and if that's the narrative, if we do our research and it ends up being that way, then that'll be the narrative. And if we find things that don't align with that, then we're going to push back and we're going to start the fire. So people go, oh yeah, you started of course you know that. And so I took that experience and started Rob Johnson Communications and started really for internal and external communications and some of the attributes you were talking about earlier, crisis management and image building and that sort of thing. So that's and a lot of that during COVID is pivoted to sort of remote presentation training and various things. And so you sort of have to be nimble. But I also joined a firm, Tech CXO, which provides C-suite level executives on a part-time, fractional, and project basis. And so I'm in the CMO practice as a communication specialist. So that's another path that I've taken. And I feel like with those two paths, it's kept me pretty busy. And during COVID, when one thing sort of slowed down, one picked up and vice versa.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this, when you go from, earning a paycheck every week your whole career to being a consultant, to being a, W-9 and 1099 and K-1 person, it's a little bit different lifestyle. That's for sure. And so I think people would tell you, and I would certainly affirm it, that, hey, I've got some good clients, but you always need more clients. Whatever you've done, you need to do a little bit better.
Absolutely right. And reinventing of oneself can be a very arduous task, but it can be very exciting at the same time. And I really think that that's a great message you have to offer people as far as, when you're done with one thing, how to put down something old, how to pick up something new. And this is the time. I think even with COVID and everything that's going on, this is one of the greatest times in our history to be alive because everything's wide open. I believe that this pandemic, I tell people all the time, in my opinion, is the great equalizer because it's waking a lot of people up to their own possibilities and forcing a lot of people to spend quality time with themselves, something that a lot of us didn't know how to do prior.
Yeah. So, well, listen, I got to tell you, COVID is not the way anybody drew it up, and there's a lot of people struggling out there, and I know that, and I mean, I think in unless you're somebody who is immune to all this, literally and figuratively, everybody's struggling to a certain degree. But what I'm grateful for is that I've had time with my family that I didn't normally have. with my wife and son. My son's 15. He's getting ready to move to Detroit in 2 weeks and
Wow.
go play for a team there. And he's going to go to online school. And everybody's
How
like,
old is
"You're
he?
going to allow him to do this during 15? You're going to allow him to do this during COVID?" And it's like, I know, but it's going to be a good move for him. But we're getting ready to lose our one and only 3 years earlier than we thought. And that's a little, mom and
What
dad.
he's going there to do? What? Play what?
He's a hockey player. He's going to go play for a AAA team in Detroit, and he's going to go to online school there. And he was going to go to a hockey academy, and so we're talking about maybe thinking about doing all online school, because I think most kids are going to be going to all online school this year, even if they realize it right now or not.
Right. Right.
They may start off with a staggered schedule, and some people are doing for that. And once 3 people get sick at the school, they're going to shut it down. I think a lot of kids are going to be going to online school this year, and so we're just trying to anticipate that. But the point is, I got all this bonus time with my son, certainly my wife too, but my son, who's getting ready to leave the nest, and it was just, I was so grateful for that time.
Rob, does that kind of feel like it did back in 19 when you stepped out of the limelight, so to speak? How similar is this experience with your only leaving earlier? Because you actually, a lot of people would think, like, why does he leave television so early? I mean, you still look good, you still sound good, you can still cover a great story, but your decision was your decision.
Well,
how does that compare to this thing with your son?
Well, I would say this: the way they're comparable is that I was able to spend a lot more time with my son, and that was, my son said, it was like, hey, this big life-changing thing happened with television, and then all of a sudden I'm trying to reinvent myself and change careers and do that sort of thing, and it's a lot of work and it's a lot of struggle. But my son loved every minute of it. He's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're not doing that anymore, because I get to see you." And for us, time is, that's the most important thing, is having that time.
Our greatest resource.
So there was a great change in that. So I didn't spend a lot of time thinking, "Oh, I'm not on the air. Oh, I'm not, getting my reps, 3 times a day or this or that." That I never thought about that.
Right.
I thought about, man, I'm able to spend more time with my family. And then I thought, well, how are you going to provide for them? You're changing careers. You're reinventing yourself. How are you going to make that happen? So obviously there's pressure to do that. But I have to tell you that, the business has had its struggles, and I kind of saw where it was going, and I had a really great job.
The business.
And then it goes away, and I didn't want to sort of, struggle.
When you say the business has struggles, are you talking about your work in television or your new business?
No, TV. So I thought this would be a perfect time to sort of pivot and go do something else that allowed me more flexibility, that allowed me to take all of my skills that I learned in TV and transfer them and help clients and help them be their best selves. And I got to tell you, the clients that I work with, I really enjoy the preparation. I really enjoy the process. And even though it's not about me, it's not about Rob on the air, it's about them excelling with the people they work with. And when I see success there, I get a kick out of it, because I realize that I'm helping them be their best professional selves.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Let me ask, I got one last news related question. And then I want to talk about your give back part of your world, because we all need that. We all should look for that. And we're going to talk about you and your connection with Special Olympics, a big, big deal. But before we get into that, last question, just from your viewpoint, your opinion, what do you feel when you hear someone say fake news? What goes through your mind?
Well, listen, I'm not going to get into a political discussion.
Is that real
on both sides of it? Here's the thing. I think there are purveyors of propaganda that are out there, that are on social media and other platforms that do the fake news, that do that sort of thing. But I also think that you have to realize that just because somebody says something, and now especially with cable, you have people on all sides. You have Fox on the right, you have CNN and MSNBC on the left, and they're taking points of view that you might not agree with. And so, so I would hope that those places, and I'm not in their editorial meetings and that sort of thing, and I'm not the boss there.
Right.
But I would say, as it relates to most news, especially as it relates to local news, let me just talk about what I know about the most. That there is no fake news. There are points of view that are shared. And if you're doing a good job as a reporter, you're giving both sides of the story. I always try to do that. I would tell people, you may disagree with what I reported, but you always know it was fair. And so what I would say is, just because somebody presented something that you don't agree with, that doesn't make it fake news. But it sure is easy to dismiss it as that, because that's the in vogue thing. Oh, I disagree with that. That's fake news. There actually is fake news where people are doing propaganda, and they're not normal news operations. Some of them just purvey and just put out things that aren't true. That's fake news. But when you have an actual broadcast somewhere, I would like to, people don't understand that there are lots of checks and balances, that you have to get things vetted before it ever gets on the air. And so even if you disagree with something, that doesn't necessarily make it fake news. So do I believe there's fake news? Yes. Do I think that every time somebody invokes the fake news thing, is it fake news? No. There's a difference between somebody who's making stuff up, maybe an online or a blogger or this or that, or some operation you haven't heard of, and the operations you have heard of that are brand names. Even if you disagree with them, even if some of them are taking points of view that you disagree with, I don't think that's fake news. And so that's my thought on that.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I know that's like religion or politics, one of those things where you kind of stay off. But I mean, I wanted people to hear that option, if you will, from someone from the inside. So thank you for that. Now, let's talk about Special Olympics. How did you what made you choose Special Olympics? Why does it hold such a special place in your heart? And what's going on in it? What are you guys doing right now? And how can we all be a part of it?
Well, first of all, I have a brother with Down syndrome. A lot of people know this. He's 48 years old. He lives in Little Rock, Arkansas, at an Easter Seals facility. And he's one of the loves of my life, and has been a shining light in our family for all these years. And you think about having a child with a disability, and people are like, oh gosh, that's, I'm so sorry that happened to you. But you know what? It was the biggest blessing for my family. And I know a lot of other people that are out there probably agree with this, because he made us less cynical. He taught us to love in ways that we wouldn't have learned if everybody in the family didn't have a disability. So he's an absolute joy, and his name's Edward. And that's why I got involved in Special Olympics. And it's so good to see young adults being empowered. When I was growing up, I played baseball and basketball. My youngest brother, Andrew, we played sports, and my brother Edward went to 1,000 games, easy. And then when he got to do some Special Olympics, it was always kind of cool to be able to support him, on rare occasion. But it's always great to see these athletes empowered, and see them gain confidence, and see them, be able to participate and compete, in a really beautiful way, and to be supportive of one another, but to be empowered, because you don't see people with disabilities in society, as empowering. And they are. If you take a look, and if you see what they have to offer, they are. And so that's what I love about Special Olympics the most. We usually have the Duck Derby in early August. They throw a ton of, you sponsor a duck. And
I've done it. It's fun.
1 million of them in the Chicago River, and that sort of thing. Obviously, because of COVID, they're doing a virtual Duck Derby. So I would just urge anybody, if you want to take part in that, go to SOILL.org, SpecialOlympicsIllinois.org. And there's a way that you can contribute and do that. That's the next thing coming up. It's coming up in the next 10 days or so, early August. And then we have our gala coming up in the fall. That's going to be virtual as well. And a lot of these not-for-profits, and I serve on boards of several of them, have had to pivot, because it's still not safe to have everybody congregating in hotel ballrooms and that sort of thing. So I really believe in the Special Olympics work, because it's a known brand. It started here in Chicago 52 years ago. Ann Burke and Ian Shriver, and and it's just to see the smiles on these folks' faces, to see them empowered and to be able to compete and to be able to have confidence and that sort of thing is just so important. And that's, I think, why it's such a great brand, because people really respond to it and they understand that it's important to show all different people in society that they're,
Yeah.
you know, that they have abilities. We say people with disabilities, but these people have abilities.
Absolutely.
If you look just a little bit, you can see them.
Yes. In order to see, be a blessing, you have to be able to first see the blessing. And so I'm
Amen.
a firm believer in that one. So on the screen right now, for all of you who would like to contact Rob or continue this dialogue, you can contact him on what you see right there, Rob Johnson at rj47llc.com. Or if LinkedIn's more your style, here you go. So Rob, or excuse me, just about out of time, but I have one final question for you. This is your Jerry Springer final thought, if you will. You know, we just recently lost one of my favorites from television. Actually, met him back in the 80s, back when the People magazine and stuff was going on, when I was the Apology King, Regis and Kathy. And Regis has left the building. And I wondered the day that happened. And I'm going to ask you, when you look back over your shoulder to your life, your career, what is the thing that you look back at and you go, wow, that right there, now that's my proudest moment, because you've seen a lot of things. You've seen a lot of things that you can't unsee. You've heard a lot of things that you can't unhear. But when you put them all out there, what would be the one thing you would want to leave people with that you've learned from what you've done all these years to help them be better people?
Well, I would just say, for me, there was nothing greater than being at the big story. And the worst one I ever covered was Hurricane Katrina, and going down with some of the special forces people on an amphibious vehicle and seeing bodies floating in the lower Ninth Ward years later. I mean, days later, and it was absolutely chilling and something that you can't unsee, as you just said. And trying to drive that home and to not be sensational about it, but to be respectful. Those are human lives that have been lost. And so to me, that was, and that took, I remember getting to go on vacation right when I got back from that. And it took a while to kind of come down. And it was a tough story to tell, but it was an important story to tell, right? And then you get the highs, and then you get to be where the action is, you know, like a convention, you know, all this energy and people hopeful that their candidate's going to win. And so that's a different kind of story. But to be honest about that and to tell the both sides of the story. And then when you got to do a like Cubs World Series or a Blackhawks Stanley Cup, and I'm a big hockey fan. That's the good stuff, man. Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy to see you, covering the Super Bowl in Miami, years ago when the Bears and Colts played, and you're like, let's see if we can find Bears fans. And we go down, Ocean Drive in South Beach, and you see Bears jerseys, and everybody's happy. And like, hey, Rob from Channel 2, how you doing? I mean, so it's the whole spectrum there. It's covering a lot of stories that are just that are haunting, that are negative. And believe me, I think most people in news don't like having to cover those kinds of stories, but it's part of the business. And then every once in a while you get thrown a bone and you get to cover something great. And so anyway, the whole magnitude of all those stories and trying to be honest and transparent and trying to be credible, and the work is what's going to define me as I move forward.
Nicely said. Thank you so much, Rob. We have I wish we had more time. This has just flown by. It really has. So I'm going to offer you the turnstile invitation, which means that anytime you've got something going on, if you want to bring in something that we need to know that's going on with the Illinois Special Olympics or anything else, please let me know. We'll get you on as soon as possible. And I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my bathrobe moment heart for coming here today. Seriously, it's been a true honor, a real pleasure, and I can't thank you enough.
Hey, thank you for the opportunity and to getting to hang out with you and in this sort of informal way, sitting there with the hat on backwards and just, sitting
That's
there
right.
And just having a good time. So I appreciate the opportunity, and it was great to be able to be with you on the stream today.
Oh, thank you. So everyone, remember, you can get in touch with Rob. I'm going to throw that back up as we close out here where you can reach him. And all I have for you guys now is to meet me back here tomorrow morning, God willing. We're going to do it all again. Conchita Jones is going to be here sharing with us her Women Over 50 calendar that's sweeping the country. And also, in conclusion, do me a favor, won't you please? It's not hard. Get out there today and every day. Do your very, very best. Every person in every situation you encounter, all we have to do to make this world a better place for all is to leave each person in every situation a tad bit better than the way we do that, and you will have lived a legacy worth being proud of. Thank you all. Have a great day. I'll see you back tomorrow. Rob, again, hats off, my man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye now.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.